I just wanted to grab my bills and collapse in my apartment. But a thick envelope stopped me cold. It had no return address, just my name scrawled in shaky ink. Inside, I found a stack of cash and a note that chilled my blood. It repeated the exact words my stepmother screamed before her final blow, but with a correction. It said I always deserved this. Someone knew exactly what happened in that locked room, and they had just betrayed her. My name is Natalie Pierce. I am 29 years old, and until 45 minutes ago, I believed that the worst night of my life was firmly in the past, buried under 2 years of therapy and 1,000 miles of distance. I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment in the Pearl District of Portland, Oregon. It is a space I curated with the meticulous, almost obsessive precision of someone who needs to control their environment because they cannot control their history. I work as a content lead for Northline Creative Studio, a job that requires me to package messy human emotions into neat, marketable narratives for tech startups and coffee roasters. I am good at it because I know how to edit. I know how to cut out the ugly parts until only the shiny, the palatable version remains. But life, unlike the copy I write, does not have a backspace key. It was a Tuesday, the kind of gray, weeping Tuesday that the Pacific Northwest specializes in. I had just come home from a 12-hour shift. My shoulders knotted with tension and my eyes stinging from staring at blue light screens since 8 in the morning. The lobby of my building smelled faintly of rain and floor wax. I walked to the bank of mailboxes, my movements mechanical. Key in, turn, pull. The metal door squeaked, a sound that usually signaled nothing more exciting than a utility bill or a coupon for a new pizza place. Today, the box was jammed. I tugged at the stack. Between an electric bill and a flyer for dental insurance, something heavy fell onto the linoleum floor with a solid, flat thud. It did not sound like paper. It sounded like a brick. I bent down to pick it up. It was a manila envelope, size A4, but it was taped shut with aggressive layers of clear packing tape. There was no return address, no stamp. It had not gone through the postal system. Someone had walked into this building, stood exactly where I was standing, and shoved this into slot 4B. My name was written on the front in black marker, Natalie Pierce. The handwriting was erratic. It looked jagged, the letters slanting in different directions, like someone writing with their non-dominant hand or trying to disguise their penmanship. A cold prickle of unease danced down my spine. Portland is a safe city, mostly, and my building has a keypad entry, but the intimacy of the delivery felt like a violation. It felt like eyes on the back of my neck. I looked around the lobby. It was empty. The street outside was a blur of wet asphalt and passing headlights. I took the elevator up to the 3rd floor, clutching the envelope against my chest. It felt dense. Whatever was inside was packed tight. My mind cycled through the rational possibilities. A work portfolio? A prank? A very strange promotional package? I unlocked my apartment door, locked it behind me, and threw the deadbolt. Only then did I breathe. I tossed my keys into the ceramic bowl by the door and carried the package to my kitchen island. The quartz countertop was cool under my fingers. I grabbed a pair of scissors from the drawer. The tape fought me. It was thick and layered, as if the sender was terrified the contents might spill out by accident. I sawed through the final layer and upended the envelope. I expected documents. I expected photos. I expected a threat. I did not expect the smell. It is a distinct scent, the smell of circulated currency, old paper, cotton, human sweat, and metallic ink. Dozens of stacks of bills slid out onto my clean white counter. They were wrapped in rubber bands, mostly hundreds and fifties. It was a mountain of green. My breath hitched in my throat, turning into a choked cough. I stepped back, the scissors clattering to the floor. This was not just money. This was a fortune. I stood there for a long time, the silence of the apartment pressing in on me. The refrigerator hummed. A car honked somewhere on Burnside Street. I reached out and touched the nearest stack. It was real. It was gritty and used. I did quick, frantic mental math. Judging by the thickness of the bundles, there had to be close to $200,000 sitting next to my fruit bowl. $200,000. The number hit me like a physical blow to the stomach. It was almost exactly the amount. It was the inheritance. It was the insurance money. It was the safety net my father had tried to leave me. The safety net that had been slashed and stolen. My heart began to hammer against my ribs, a frantic, bird-like rhythm. Was this a setup? Had I just touched marked bills from a bank robbery? Was the FBI about to kick down my door? Then I saw it. Stuck to the bottom of the last stack of hundreds was a piece of plain white printer paper, folded once. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely unfold it. The paper crinkled loudly in the quiet room. There was no date, no signature, just 2 typed sentences, centered on the page. You always deserved this. Use it to finish what she started. The air left the room. The world tilted on its axis. I gripped the edge of the counter to keep from falling. I knew that phrasing. I knew the cadence of it. It was a twisted, inverted echo of the last thing Veronica said to me. I closed my eyes, and for a second, I was not in my apartment in Portland. I was back in the study in Salem, smelling the cedar wood and Veronica's cloying perfume. I could hear her voice, shrill and venomous, cutting through the air as she stood over me. You do not deserve a penny of this. That was what she had screamed right before the darkness took me. You do not deserve a penny of this. And now, a ghost had written, You always deserve this. Terror, cold and sharp, washed over the initial shock. Who wrote this? Only 3 people had been in that room. My father was already dead when it happened. That left Veronica, and me. Unless someone else had been there, unless someone had been listening, or unless Veronica herself was playing some sick, twisted game. I looked at the note again. Use it to finish what she started. What did that mean? Finish the fight? Finish the destruction of our family? Or did it mean finish her? The ambiguity was terrifying. If Veronica sent this, it was a trap. She could be setting me up for extortion. She could claim I stole this money. She could claim I was blackmailing her. The police had already sided with her once. They had looked at her crocodile tears and my bruised face and decided I was the aggressor. If the police walked in right now and found $200,000 in cash on my counter, with no paper trail, I would go to prison. I would lose my job, my apartment, my carefully reconstructed life. But if it wasn't Veronica, then someone knew. Someone knew she stole it. Someone knew she lied to the police. Someone knew she falsified the records, and that someone had just handed me the weapon I needed to kill her. Metaphorically, legally, financially. My gaze drifted down to my left wrist. The sleeve of my sweater had ridden up. There, pale and silvery against my skin, was a thin, jagged scar. It looked innocuous now. Just a line of old tissue, but I remembered how it felt when it was fresh. I remembered the burning sting when my arm scraped against the metal edge of the filing cabinet as she shoved me. I remembered the throbbing ache that lasted for weeks, a constant reminder every time I typed an email or lifted a coffee cup. I touched the scar with my right thumb. It was a grounding mechanism. I am here. I am safe. She is not here. But she was here. Her presence was in this money. This was the money that should have paid for my graduate school. The money that should have allowed me to grieve my father without panicking about rent. This was the money she used to buy her new SUV and her renovated kitchen while I scraped by on instant noodles and fear. I looked at the door. I checked the deadbolt again. I should call the police. That is what a normal, law-abiding citizen does when a bag of cash appears in their home. But I did not pick up the phone to dial 911. The last time I dealt with the police, I ended up in handcuffs while my abuser slept in my father's bed. The system requires proof. The system requires clean hands. And right now, my hands were covered in the dust of mysterious money. I took a deep breath, forcing oxygen into my starving lungs. I pulled my smartphone from my pocket. I opened the voice recorder app. My thumb hovered over the red button. Okay, I whispered to the empty room. Okay, Natalie, think. I pressed record. My name is Natalie Pierce. It is 10:13 at night on Tuesday, November 14th. I just found a package in my mailbox. I did not request it. I do not know who sent it. I kept the phone recording as I walked around the island. I took photos of the envelope, focusing on the tape and the handwriting. I took photos of the money, ensuring the serial numbers on the top bills were visible. I took a close-up of the note. "If this is a trap," I said to the recording, my voice steady despite the shaking in my knees, "I am documenting everything from minute one. I am not touching this money. I am not spending it. But I am not giving it back to her either. Finish what she started." The words burned into my retinas. Veronica started a war. She started a war the day she realized my father was dying and she could erase me from the picture. She thought she had won. She thought she had buried me under legal threats and public humiliation. She thought that by taking the money, she had taken my power. She was wrong. I looked at the cash again. It was not just currency, it was ammunition. But to understand why this money is not a gift, but a grenade. To understand why I cannot just go to the cops. And to understand why the woman who raised me for 10 years is the most dangerous person I know. You have to understand the history. You have to go back to the beginning. You have to see the bruises you cannot see on my skin. You need to know exactly how she broke me, so you can understand how much I'm going to enjoy breaking her back. To understand how a person lets themselves be robbed blind by the people who are supposed to protect them. You have to understand the architecture of a slow-motion demolition. It does not happen with a wrecking ball. It happens with a spoon, scraping away your boundaries one layer at a time until you are hollowed out, and the structure collapses under its own weight. My childhood in Salem, Oregon, was defined by two distinct eras. The first era was the quiet era. This was the time after my mother, Laura, died of ovarian cancer when I was 15. For 3 years. It was just my father, David, and me. We were two ghosts haunting a 3-bedroom ranch house, navigating around the empty spaces where Mom used to be. We ate takeout on paper plates because neither of us could bear to cook her recipes. We watched hours of mindless television because silence felt too heavy. I grew up fast in those years, becoming the emotional anchor for a man who was drifting out to sea. I thought that was my job. I thought that was what love looked like. Then came the second era, the Veronica era. My father met Veronica Walsh at a grief support group held in the basement of a Methodist church. It is a cliché, I know. The vulnerable widower and the vibrant, understanding widow who just gets it. Veronica was 42 then, only 7 years younger than my father. But she possessed an energy that made him look ancient. She had a loud laugh, a sharp bob cut, and a 12-year-old daughter named Kayla, who looked at me like I was a piece of furniture she wanted to rearrange. They got married 6 months after they met. I was 18 years old, packing boxes for my freshman year at the University of Oregon. When they announced the engagement, the timing was impeccable. Just as I was about to leave, to finally start my own life, my father replaced me, or rather, he replaced the role I filled. "I just want us to be a family again, Nat," he told me, his eyes shining with a hope I did not have the heart to crush. She is a godsend. She is going to make this house a home again." He was right. She did make it a home, her home. When I came back for Thanksgiving that first year, my bedroom was gone. It had been repainted a soft lavender and converted into a study and guest room for Kayla to do her homework in peace. I slept on a pull-out couch in the den. Veronica apologized with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes, placing a hand on my forearm. "We just needed the space, sweetie," she said. "Kayla is at such a sensitive age, and with you gone so much, it seems silly to leave a whole room empty. You understand, don't you? You're the big sister. You always understand." That was the first spoon scrape. You understand. It became the refrain of my 20s. A year later, Veronica got pregnant with Ethan. My father was 50, Veronica 44. It was a miracle baby, they said. For me, it was a sentence, because Veronica did not just bring a new wife into my father's life. She brought a chaotic ecosystem that required constant maintenance, and she decided very early on that I was the maintenance staff. I was not the wicked stepmother's victim in the fairy tale sense. I was not forced to scrub floors in rags while they went to the ball. It was much more insidious. It was the weaponization of family duty. Every time I came home from college, I was not a guest. I was the relief pitcher. Natalie, since you are driving back to Portland on Sunday, can you drop Kayla at her dance intensive in Wilsonville? It is on the way. It was not on the way. It was 40 minutes out of the way. Natalie, your dad and I have not had a date night in 6 months, since you are here for the weekend. Could you watch Ethan? He loves his big sissy. If I hesitated, if I said I had plans, if I said I had an exam to study for, the atmosphere in the house would shift instantly. The temperature would drop. Veronica would sigh, a long, tragic exhalation, and look at my father. It is okay. David, she would say, loud enough for me to hear. I know Natalie is busy. She has her own life now. She cannot be expected to care about us. I will just cancel the dinner reservation. It does not matter. And then my father, looking pained and guilty, would turn to me. Nat, please, just this once. Veronica is so stressed. She does so much for us. So I would say yes. I always said yes. I drove Kayla to dance, to cheer practice, to her friends' houses where she would slam the car door without saying thank you. I changed Ethan's diapers, then wiped his nose, then helped him with his math homework. I spent my weekends playing chauffeur and nanny while Veronica went to her mindfulness retreats, or spent the afternoon at the spa because she needed self-care to be a better mother. I told myself I was doing it for Dad. I saw how tired he looked. His heart condition was already starting to show itself in the gray pallor of his skin and the way he got winded walking up the driveway. I thought if I took the burden off him, I was saving him. I did not realize I was just making it easier for her to use him. But the moment that truly defined my role in the family, the moment I should have seen the writing on the wall, was my 25th birthday. I was living in Portland by then, working my first junior copywriter job, barely making rent. I had been dating a guy named Mark for 3 weeks, and we had tentative plans to go to a concert, but 2 days before my birthday, my father called. We want to celebrate you. Nat, he said. His voice sounded weak, and guilt pricked at me. Veronica booked a cabin at a lake house near Mount Hood, just the family. A weekend getaway. Please come. It would mean the world to me. How do you say no to that? I canceled on Mark. I drove down to Salem to pick them up because Veronica's SUV was making a funny noise, and they did not want to risk it. I drove 3 hours to the cabin with a car full of people. My father slept in the passenger seat, in the back. Kayla, then 19, complained about the cell service, and 5-year-old Ethan kicked the back of my seat for 80 miles. Veronica spent the ride criticizing my driving and telling me I looked tired, asking if I was eating enough vegetables, or if I was still living on coffee and ambition. When we got to the cabin, it was beautiful, rustic, expensive, right on the water. I thought, okay, this is nice. Maybe this will be a good weekend. Oh, Natalie, Veronica said as soon as we unpacked. We forgot the charcoal for the grill, and we need milk for Ethan. Could you run back to that town we passed? It is only 20 minutes back. I went. I bought the charcoal. I bought the milk. When I got back, Veronica and my father were already on the deck, opening a bottle of wine. Kayla was on her phone. Ethan was running around screaming. Great, you are back, Veronica said, handing me a spatula. Dad is not feeling up to standing over the heat. You don't mind handling the burgers, do you? You know how he likes them, medium rare. So, on the night of my 25th birthday, I stood alone in a cloud of smoke, flipping burgers for 4 people, while my family sat on the deck laughing at a story Veronica was telling. I ate my burger standing up in the kitchen because there were only 4 chairs at the patio table, and Ethan needs to sit to eat properly. After dinner, I thought we would do cake. I had seen a bakery box in the pile of luggage. Okay, the kids, bedtime, Veronica announced at 8:30. She looked at me. Nat, Ethan is too wound up to sleep with us. Can he bunk in your room? And maybe you can read to him until he settles? Dave and I are going to take a little walk by the water. Romance, you know? I stared at her. It is my birthday, I said. It was the first time all day I had mentioned it. Veronica blinked, looking genuinely confused. I know, honey. That is why we are here, to spend time together. Don't be difficult. Your father is so happy you are here. She took my father's arm, and they walked out the door. Kayla disappeared into her room with headphones on. I spent my 25th birthday night lying in a twin bed next to a snoring 5-year-old, staring at a water stain on the ceiling shaped like a grimace. When they came back an hour later, smelling of wine and campfire smoke, Veronica clapped her hands. Oh, cake! I almost forgot. She went to the kitchen and came back not with the bakery box I had seen. That turned out to be scones for her breakfast. But with a plastic container. She opened it to reveal a single, slightly smashed vanilla cupcake with blue frosting, the kind you buy at a gas station convenience store. The price sticker was still on the bottom, $1.99. Kayla picked it out, Veronica beamed, looking at her daughter who had emerged from her room for food. Sing, everyone! They sang Happy Birthday out of tune. My father looked at me with misty eyes, raising his glass of expensive Pinot Noir. To Natalie, he said, our rock, we would be lost without you, sweetheart. I blew out the candle. It took everything I had not to scream. The cupcake tasted like stale sugar and wax. But the worst part wasn't the cupcake. It wasn't the driving. It wasn't the grilling. It was the Facebook post I saw the next morning. Veronica had posted a selfie of the 4 of them on the deck. Her, Dad, Kayla, and Ethan, smiling with the sunset behind them. I was not in the photo. I was inside washing the dishes when it was taken. The caption read, "So blessed to have this beautiful family, celebrating our darling Natalie's 25th birthday this weekend. So proud of the woman she has become. She is always so selfless, always putting her family first. A true angel who loves taking care of her little brother and sister. Family. First blessed bonus, Mom. Life." The comments were flooding in. You are such a good mom. Veronica, Natalie is lucky to have you. What a beautiful family. I sat on the edge of the deck, scrolling through the comments, feeling a tightness in my chest that felt like drowning. She had curated a perfect narrative. In her story, I was the beloved daughter. In reality, I was the staff. She used my obedience as a prop to polish her own halo. Why do you let her do that? My best friend Jasmine asked me when I got back to Portland, crying over a glass of cheap wine. Because of Dad, I said. He is sick, Jazz. He is really sick. If I fight her, I lose him. She is the gatekeeper. If I make her the enemy, she will make sure I never see him. I just have to wait it out. I just have to endure it. I thought that was the price. I thought the currency I was paying was my time, my dignity, and my sanity. I thought I was paying for access to my father. I was naive. I did not realize that while I was busy protecting my father's feelings, Veronica was busy securing his assets. I did not realize that the selfless daughter narrative was not just for social media clout. It was a strategic foundation. She was painting a picture of me as someone who did not need anything, someone who was capable and independent, someone who existed to serve, not to receive. She was setting the stage to argue that I didn't need his help. The birthday from hell was not just a bad weekend. It was a stress test. She was seeing how much I would take. She was seeing if I would fight back. And when I ate that smashed gas station cupcake and smiled for my father, I gave her the answer she wanted. She will not fight. She will roll over. I look back at that girl, that 25-year-old girl desperate for a crumb of paternal affection, and I want to shake her. I want to tell her that the woman smiling across the table isn't forgetful or overwhelmed. She is a predator who has found her prey. But I stayed silent. I drove them home. I cleaned the car. I thanked them for the lovely weekend. And all the while, in the background, papers were being signed, accounts were being moved. The real theft was already happening, quiet as a pen stroke, while I was distracted by the noise of being a good daughter. I thought I had reached the bottom of the humiliation that weekend. I was wrong. The fall had not even started. The floor was about to drop out, and it would not be over a cupcake. It would be over a life's work. The beginning of the end did not look like a tragedy. It looked like a swollen ankle. It started with my father complaining that his shoes felt tight. Then came the shortness of breath after walking up the single flight of stairs to his bedroom. Then, the cough that would not go away. A dry hacking sound that echoed through the house at night. When he finally collapsed in the kitchen while trying to make coffee, the diagnosis came down like a gavel. End-stage congestive heart failure. The cardiologist, a man who looked too young to be delivering death sentences, explained it to us in percentages. My father's ejection fraction, the percentage of blood leaving his heart each time it squeezed, was hovering in the low 20s. A healthy heart operates between 50 and 70%. My father was running on a quarter of a tank, and the engine was failing. He had to retire immediately. The construction management job that had been his identity for 30 years was over. The steady paycheck stopped, and suddenly, the air in the house in Salem changed. It became thin and sharp, smelling of rubbing alcohol and unspoken panic. Money became the third person in every conversation. A month after the diagnosis, my father asked me to drive him to see Mark Ellison, his attorney. Mark was an old family friend, the kind of lawyer whose office smelled of mahogany and stale pipe tobacco. Located in a brick building downtown, Veronica did not come. She was at a yoga for stress relief workshop, or at least that was the excuse. I suspect my father asked her not to be there. In that dim office, surrounded by walls of leather-bound books, my father laid out his final wishes. He looked small in the oversized guest chair, his skin the color of old parchment. "I want to be fair, Nat," he said, his voice wheezing slightly. "I have to think about everyone." Mark Ellison took notes on a yellow legal pad. The division was specific. The house in Salem, which had a significant mortgage but some equity, would eventually be sold. The proceeds would go into a trust for Ethan's education and to help Kayla get started. Veronica would be the beneficiary of his standard pension, which would give her a monthly stipend. "But," my father said, turning to look at me, his eyes watery but intense, "I have the separate account, the legacy savings." I knew the one. It was an account he had opened right after my mother died. He had deposited a chunk of her life insurance there and added to it quietly over the years. It was at a credit union across town, separate from his joint accounts with Veronica. "That is for you, Natalie," he said. "It has $212,000 in it. Plus, you are the sole beneficiary of my primary life insurance policy, which is another $50,000. That money is yours, for a house, for a wedding, for whatever you need to build the life you put on hold for us." $212,000. I sat there, stunned. I had no idea he had managed to protect that much. It was life-changing money. It was freedom. It was his way of saying that he had seen me, even when he couldn't protect me from Veronica's daily cruelties. He was leaving me an escape hatch. "We will draft this up," Mark said, looking at me over his spectacles. "Natalie, you will be the executor. It keeps things clean." When we got home, Veronica was waiting in the kitchen. She was chopping vegetables with a violence that suggested the carrots had personally offended her. She did not ask how the meeting went. She just waited. My father, exhausted from the outing, went straight to bed. I stayed in the kitchen to get a glass of water. "So," Veronica said, her back to me, "did he give you the moon and the stars?" "He just wanted to get his affairs in order, Veronica." She turned around, the knife still in her hand. "He thinks he has a fortune. He doesn't. And if he thinks dumping a pile of cash on you is a good idea, he is senile. You have never had to manage real responsibility. You will waste it on whatever it is you do in Portland, art projects, hipster nonsense." "I work in marketing," I said, keeping my voice level, "and it is Dad's decision." "We will see," she said. It was not a threat. It was a prediction. As the winter turned into a wet, gray spring, My father's condition deteriorated. The hospital visits became weekly. The medication list grew from 3 bottles to 12. He needed oxygen at night. Then he needed oxygen during the day. This was when the paperwork started appearing. I came down from Portland one weekend to find Veronica sitting at the dining room table with a notary public and a stack of documents. My father was sitting there, looking gray and confused, signing his name with a shaking hand. "What is this?" I asked, dropping my bag. "Just practicalities, Natalie," Veronica said, her voice smooth and reasonable. "Your father is too weak to handle the bills. He keeps forgetting to sign the checks for the specialists. We are just setting up a durable power of attorney so I can handle the day-to-day finances without dragging him to the bank." I felt a cold prickle on the back of my neck. I thought I was supposed to help with that. Mark said, "You are in Portland, Natalie," Veronica cut in. "You are an hour away. Do you want me to call you every time the pharmacy needs a copay? Every time the ambulance sends a bill? It is ridiculous. I am his wife. I am right here." She held out a pen to me. "I need you to sign as a witness that he is of sound mind, unless you think he isn't." I looked at my father. He looked so tired. He looked like he just wanted the noise to stop. "Dad?" I asked. He reached out and took my hand. His fingers were cold and paper-thin. "It is okay, Bug," he whispered, using his childhood nickname for me. "I am just so tired of the paperwork. Veronica will handle the bills. She promised she will only touch what is needed for the doctors. Trust me. Trust her this one time. Please. Trust her this one time." That was the trap. If I said no, I was the difficult daughter causing stress to a dying man. If I said no, I was accusing his wife of being a thief while he was still alive. I looked at the document. It was a standard durable power of attorney, granting Veronica Walsh full access to all financial accounts, assets, and property to act on his behalf. It was a blank check. "It is just for the medical bills," Veronica said softly. "I just want to take care of him. Natalie." I signed the witness line. I signed away my future because I did not have the heart to fight a dying man. 3 months later, my father died in his sleep. The funeral was a blur of black umbrellas and rain. Veronica played the role of the grieving widow with Oscar-worthy commitment. She wept into a lace handkerchief. She leaned heavily on Kayla. She accepted condolences with a trembling lip. I stood off to the side, feeling like a stranger at my own father's memorial. I did not cry. I felt hollowed out, as if the grief was too large to fit inside my body, so it just sat on top of me like a stone. A week after the funeral, I received a call from Mark Ellison. "Natalie," he said, his voice grave but professional. "We need to meet. I have the will. We can start the probate process. I have the details on the separate account and the insurance." I felt a spark of something that wasn't quite happiness, but relief. The nightmare of the last few years was over. I could grieve properly. I could take that money, buy a small house, maybe take a year off to write. I could finally breathe. I drove to Salem. I met Mark in his office. He opened the file. "Okay," Mark said. "The life insurance policy is straightforward. That check will be mailed directly to you. $50,000, now, regarding the credit union savings account to us." He pulled out a folder. "As the executor, I sent a request for the current balance and a freeze on the assets yesterday." He frowned. He adjusted his glasses. He picked up a piece of paper and held it closer to the lamp. "That is odd," he muttered. "What?" I asked, leaning forward. "The balance," Mark said. "It says the closing balance is $42.16. The room spun. "That is impossible," I said. "Dad told me $212,000. He told me that 3 months ago." Mark looked at me, his face pale. "Natalie, look at the transaction history." He slid the paper across the mahogany desk. My eyes scanned the rows of numbers. 14 days before my father died, 2 weeks to the day, there was a single withdrawal, a wire transfer. Amount, $211,950. Authorized by POA Veronica Walsh. Recipient, Joint checking account, ending in 449. She had drained it. She had waited until he was too weak to notice, used the power of attorney I had witnessed, and emptied the account that was specifically left to me. She cannot do that, I whispered. That was in the will. Mark took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. He looked old and defeated. Technically, the power of attorney allows her to manage his assets while he is alive. If she moved the money before he died, it is no longer part of his sole estate. It became joint property, and since she is the surviving spouse on the joint account— She stole it, I said. My voice was rising. She stole my inheritance. We can challenge it, Mark said, but he sounded unsure. We can demand an accounting. She has to prove that the money was used for his benefit, medical bills, debts. Let's go, I said, standing up. I want to go to the bank, now. We went to the credit union. The manager, a woman who looked like she wanted to be anywhere else, confirmed the transaction. She pulled up the digital copy of the authorization. There was Veronica's signature, bold and looping, right next to the box that said, "Reason for transfer, consolidation of family assets for medical care." I drove to the house, my father's house. Veronica was in the living room, sorting through condolence cards. She looked up when I stormed in, Mark trailing behind me, looking uncomfortable. "Natalie," she said, her voice cool. "I did not expect you." "The money," I said. I was shaking. "The account at the credit union. Where is it?" Veronica did not flinch. She placed a card down on the table with deliberate slowness. "Oh, that. Yes, that. You transferred it 2 weeks before he died." Expenses were high. "Natalie," she said, standing up. She smoothed down her black skirt. "Do you have any idea what home hospice costs? What the funeral cost? What the outstanding debts were on the house?" Mark stepped forward. "Veronica, I have the invoices. The funeral was prepaid. The hospice was covered by Medicare and his secondary insurance. The out-of-pocket maximum was $6,000. Veronica's eyes narrowed. She ignored him and looked directly at me. "Your father left me with nothing but stress and a mortgage," she spat. "I had to secure my future. I had to secure Kayla and Ethan's future. I consolidated the funds to pay off the debts. It is gone." "You used the power of attorney to bypass the will," I said. "You knew that money was for me. You knew it." "I knew your father was not thinking clearly," she said. "He would not have wanted his wife and minor son to struggle while his adult daughter went on a shopping spree." "It is $200,000. Veronica," I screamed. "You cannot spend $200,000 on debts in 2 weeks." "It is done," she said. Her voice dropped to a terrifyingly calm register. "The money is in the family pot now, and you are not family. You are just a leech who showed up when he died to collect a check." "It is stealing," I said. The word hung in the air, heavy and absolute. "You are a thief." Veronica's face changed. The mask of the grieving widow vanished entirely. In its place was something feral. Her lips curled back from her teeth. Her eyes went dead and black. It was a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. She took a step toward me. "Get out of my house," she whispered. "It is still part of the probate." Mark tried to interject. "I said get out," Veronica screamed, grabbing a heavy glass vase from the side table and hurling it. It smashed against the wall inches from my head, showering us in shards. I backed away, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was not just a financial dispute anymore. I saw it in her hands, clenched into fists. I saw it in the way she was vibrating with rage. She had taken the money, and now she wanted to take her anger out on the only person who knew the truth. I walked out the door, Mark hurrying after me. I didn't know it then, but the vase was just a warning shot. The real violence was waiting for me in the study, just a few days away. She had stolen my future, but she wasn't finished. She wanted to make sure I never came back for it. 3 days after the vase incident, Mark Ellison called me with a voice that sounded like he was trying to smuggle a secret through the telephone line. "I found something," he said. "It is small, It slipped through the cracks because it was from an employer David left almost 15 years ago, a forgotten 401k rollover that sat in a stagnant account. I sat up in my office chair at Northline, holding the phone tight against my ear. Did she get to it? No, Mark said. She does not know it exists. It was never consolidated into their joint assets because the statements were going to his old P.O. box that he closed years ago. The administrator contacted me because I am the executor. How much? I asked. After taxes and early withdrawal penalties, if you cash it out now, it comes to just under $60,000, $58,420 to be exact. $60,000. It was not the $200,000 she had stolen. It was not enough to buy a house in Portland or completely secure my future, but it was enough to pay off my student loans. It was enough to pay for a year of rent. It was a lifeline. I want it, I said. I want to cash it out immediately. I can have the check ready tomorrow, Mark said. A cashier's check, in your name. But Natalie, you need to be careful. If she finds out, she will try to claim it is marital property, legally. She would have a hard time, but she could tie it up in court for years until the legal fees eat it all up. I won't tell her, I promised. I will get the check, deposit it in my new account, and then I am done with her, forever. The next morning, I drove to Mark's office. I signed the papers with a shaking hand. When he handed me the envelope, a crisp, white business envelope with Ellison & Associates printed in the corner, I felt a surge of adrenaline that was almost dizzying. I slid the envelope into the inner zipper pocket of my oversized leather tote bag. Go straight to the bank, Mark advised. I have to stop at the house first, I said. I left my laptop charger there after the funeral, and I promised Kayla I would bring her the photo album of Dad from before he met Veronica. I want to get my things and leave before Veronica comes back from her Pilates class. Natalie, Mark warned. I will be in and out in 10 minutes, I said. I should have listened. I should have driven straight to the bank. I should have let the charger and the photos burn. When I pulled into the driveway of the house in Salem, Veronica's SUV was not there. The house looked quiet, the curtains drawn. I let myself in with my key, a key I knew she would demand back soon. The house smelled of lemon pledge and silence. I ran upstairs to the guest room, formerly my room, then Kayla's study, and grabbed my charger. Then I went to the hallway closet to find the photo albums. I was kneeling on the floor, flipping through a dusty book of photos of my mother, when I heard the front door open. My heart stopped. I froze, clutching the album. Kayla? Is that you? Veronica's voice drifted up the stairs. I stood up quickly, shoving the album into my tote bag. The bag was full. The album was bulky. In my haste, I didn't notice that the white envelope, the one with $60,000 inside, had been pushed up by the spine of the album. It was now sticking halfway out of the inner pocket, gleaming white against the brown leather. "It is me," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just getting my things." I walked down the stairs. Veronica was standing in the foyer. She was wearing workout clothes, a towel draped around her neck. She looked at me, her eyes scanning my face, then my clothes, then my bag. Her gaze stopped on the envelope. She knew, I don't know how she knew, but she possessed a sixth sense for money. Maybe she recognized the logo on the corner of the envelope. Maybe she just saw the guilt written all over my face. "What is that?" she asked. "Just paperwork," I said, shifting the bag to my other shoulder. "From Mark, closing out the estate bills." "Mark sends bills by email," she said. She took a step closer. "And he does not give you thick envelopes unless there is something inside he does not want me to see." "I am leaving, Veronica," I said, moving toward the door. She stepped in front of me. For a woman of 50, she was fast. She blocked the exit with a smile that made my blood run cold. "Don't be rude, Natalie. We have unfinished business. Come into the study. We need to talk about the funeral costs." "I am late for work." "It will take 5 minutes," she said. Then she reached out and gripped my arm. Her fingers dug in hard. "Come, in." She pulled me toward my father's study, the room where he had died, the room where he had signed the papers that ruined me. I stumbled, and she ushered me inside, closing the heavy oak door behind us. The room was dim, the curtains were drawn. It smelled of my father's old books and the stale, medicinal scent of his sickness. "Give it to me," she said. She didn't even pretend to be polite anymore. She held out her hand. "I don't know what you are talking about." "The check," she snapped. "I know Mark found the old retirement fund. I saw the letter from the administrator in the trash yesterday. I was wondering when you would try to sneak it past me." She knew. She had gone through the trash. Of course she had. "That is my money," I said, my voice trembling. "It was in his name only. Mark said—" "Mark is an idiot," she hissed. "We were married. Everything he had was mine. You are just a vulture, Natalie, circling the corpse, picking at the bones. You waited until his body was barely cold to come here and loot the place." "You stole $200,000, I screamed. The anger finally snapped the leash of my fear. "You drained his account while he was dying. You are the vulture. Veronica, you are a thief and a liar." "I am a mother," she screamed back. "I have 2 children to raise. You have nobody. You have your little job and your little apartment, and you don't need $60,000. Give it to me so I can divide it fairly between the 3 of you." "No," I said. I clutched my bag tighter. "You won't divide it. You will keep it, just like you kept the rest." I turned to the door. "I am leaving." "You are not going anywhere with my money," she said. She lunged. It wasn't like in the movies. There was no slow-motion choreography. It was sudden and ugly. She grabbed the strap of my bag. I yanked back. The force of it spun me around. "Let go," I yelled. "Give it to me!" she shrieked. Her face was contorted, red and veins bulging in her neck. She wasn't just greedy. She was frantic. She pulled the bag so hard the leather strap cut into my shoulder. I tried to push her away. My hand connected with her chest. She gasped, then snarled. She let go of the bag with one hand and clawed at my face. I felt her nails rake across my cheek, a hot, stinging line of pain. I cried out and stumbled back. She used the momentum to shove me. It was a hard, vicious shove. I flew backward. My feet tangled in the Persian rug. I fell, flailing, and the back of my head cracked against the corner of the heavy wooden filing cabinet. White light exploded behind my eyes. For a second, the world went black. I was on the floor, the taste of copper in my mouth, the room spinning like a carousel. My ears were ringing. I tried to sit up, but my limbs felt like they were underwater. Through the haze, I saw Veronica standing over me. She wasn't checking to see if I was okay. She was ripping the envelope out of my bag. "You stupid girl," she was panting. "You stupid, selfish girl." She tore the envelope open. She pulled out the check. She looked at the number and let out a short, hysterical laugh. "60,000, she muttered. "This will cover the kitchen remodel." I tried to get up. "That is ein," I slurred. My head was throbbing with a sickening pulse. "Not anymore," she said. She shoved the check into her bra. I reached for my phone, which had fallen out of my pocket during the struggle. I needed to call 911. I needed help. Veronica saw the movement. She stepped on my hand. I screamed. The heel of her sneaker ground into my fingers. She kicked the phone across the room. It slid under the heavy oak desk. "You are not calling anyone," she said. She looked down at me with disgust. "Look at you. A mess. Just like your mother was." She walked to the door. She opened it, stepped out, and then, click, the lock turned. I was trapped. Panic, cold and sharp, cut through the concussion fog. I dragged myself up. I stumbled to the door and grabbed the handle. Locked. It was an old-fashioned deadbolt that required a key from both sides. "Let me out!" I screamed. I pounded on the wood. "Veronica, open the door." I heard footsteps outside. Small, hesitant footsteps. "Mom?" It was Kayla. "What is happening? Why is Natalie screaming?" "Go to your room. Kayla?" Veronica's voice came through the wood, loud and theatrical. "Take Ethan outside, now!" "But Natalie is having an episode," Veronica shouted, pitching her voice so the neighbors might hear through the open windows. "She is hysterical. She attacked me. I had to lock her in so she wouldn't hurt herself." "I did not," I screamed, slamming my shoulder against the door. "Kayla, she stole the check. She hit me. Call the police. Kayla, please." "Don't listen to her," Veronica yelled. "She is off her meds. She is saying crazy things. Just go." I heard the front door slam. I slid down to the floor. Sobbing, I touched the back of my head. My hand came away sticky with blood. I touched my cheek where she had scratched me. It was swelling. I was trapped in the room where my father died, bleeding, while the woman who robbed him told the world I was insane. 10 minutes passed. 10 minutes of me banging on the door until my fists were bruised. 10 minutes of me searching for my phone under the desk, my vision blurring. Then I heard sirens. Thank God. I thought, the neighbors heard. They called for help. I heard heavy boots in the hallway. Voices, radio chatter. "In here, officers," Veronica's voice sobbed. "Please, be careful. She is violent. She came here demanding money, and when I said no, she just snapped. She threw a vase earlier this week, and now this." The lock clicked. The door swung open. 2 police officers stood there. They saw the overturned chair. They saw the rug bunched up. They saw me, disheveled, bleeding from the head, with a scratched face, crouching under a desk reaching for a phone. To them, I did not look like a victim. I looked like a cornered animal. "Ma'am, step away from the desk," the first officer said, his hand resting on his taser. "She hit me," I gasped, pointing a shaking finger at Veronica, who was standing behind them. She had tears streaming down her face. She had rubbed her neck to make it look red. "She stole my check. It is in her shirt. Check her." "She is hallucinating," Veronica cried softly. "There is no check. She broke in here and demanded cash. Look at her eyes. She is on something." "I am not on anything." I stood up, swaying. "Check her pockets." I moved toward Veronica. It was a mistake. "Ma'am, get back," the officer shouted. When I didn't stop, because I was desperate, because I was concussed, he grabbed me. "Stop resisting." They spun me around. My face was pressed against the wall. Cold metal clicked around my wrists. "You are arresting me?" I screamed. "She is the thief. She assaulted me." "You have the right to remain silent," the officer droned, pulling me out of the room. As they marched me past Veronica, she looked at me. The tears stopped instantly. She looked me dead in the eye, and for a second, a small, triumphant smile touched her lips. She mouthed 3 words. "You lose again." They walked me out to the cruiser in front of the whole neighborhood. Mrs. Higgins from next door was watching from her porch, shaking her head. Kayla was standing by the SUV, holding Ethan, looking at me with wide, terrified eyes. "Kayla!" I shouted as they pushed my head down to get me into the back seat. Tell them she lied." Kayla looked at me. Then she looked at her mother. She looked down at her shoes and said nothing. The door slammed shut. The cage separated me from the world. I sat on the hard plastic seat, my hands numb in the cuffs, blood drying in my hair. I watched Veronica hug the police officer, thanking him for saving her. I realized then that the truth does not matter. The law does not matter. The only thing that matters is who tells the story first and who tells it best. And as the car pulled away, taking me to a cell where I would spend the longest night of my life, I knew that Natalie Pierce, the good daughter, the one who followed the rules, had died in that study. Someone else was going to have to take her place. Someone who didn't play by the rules. But first, I had to survive the fall. The holding cell smelled of industrial disinfectant and stale urine. It is a smell that stays in your clothes long after you wash them. A phantom scent that catches you off guard days later when you are trying to buy groceries or pump gas. I sat on a metal bench that was bolted to the floor. staring at a graffiti scratch on the opposite wall that said, "Time eats everything." I was in there for 6 hours. 6 hours of replaying the moment Veronica's heel crushed my fingers. 6 hours of hearing the lock click. 6 hours of realizing that I was the one behind bars while the woman who robbed my father was sleeping in his bed. When they finally let me make my call, I did not call Jasmine. I did not want her to see me like this. I called the only bail bondsman listed in the phone book whose name started with A, because I just wanted to get out. The bail was set at $5,000. It is a lot of money when you have just been robbed of $60,000. I handed over my credit card, the one I kept for emergencies like car repairs or dental work. The man behind the glass swiped it. He frowned. He swiped it again. "It is declining, miss," he said, looking at me with the bored indifference of someone who sees ruined lives every day. "Try it again," I pleaded. "Please, there is space on it." Insufficient funds. I had to use 2 cards. I maxed out my primary card and put the rest on a card with an interest rate of 24%. I bought my freedom with debt. When I walked out of the station, it was 3 a.m. It was raining. My car was still in Salem, parked in my father's driveway behind police tape. I had to call an Uber to take me 50 miles north to Portland. The ride cost $140. I cried the entire way, silent, hot tears that burned the scratches on my face. The legal battle that followed was short, anticlimactic, and devastating. Veronica refused to drop the charges. She told the district attorney that she feared for her life. She claimed I was unstable, that I had been harassing her for money since the funeral, and that the attack in the study was the culmination of weeks of aggression, because there were no cameras in the study, and because the police found me screaming and Veronica crying. The narrative was set. However, the physical evidence was murky. My lawyer, a court-appointed public defender who looked like he hadn't slept in a week, pointed out the defensive wounds on my hands and the lack of serious injury on Veronica. The district attorney, overloaded with real violent crimes, did not want to waste time on a domestic dispute over a check that didn't exist according to the police report. They offered a deal. If I agreed to stay away from Veronica in the house for 2 years and attended 6 months of anger management counseling, they would drop the assault charge to a misdemeanor disturbing the peace, which would be dismissed after a year of good behavior. "Take it," my lawyer said. "If you go to trial, it is her word against yours. She is the grieving widow. You are the estranged daughter demanding money. A jury might hate you." So I took it. I pleaded no contest. I let the system swallow me whole because I was too broke and too exhausted to fight. But the legal system was kind compared to the court of public opinion. Veronica did not just want to win in court. She wanted to salt the earth so nothing could ever grow in my life again. She took to Facebook. 2 days after my release, Jasmine sent me a screenshot. "Do not look at it," she texted. "Just know I'm reporting it for harassment." I looked. Of course I looked. Veronica had written a 1,000-word essay. She posted a photo of herself looking somber, holding a candle. "It breaks a mother's heart to do this," she wrote, "but I have to protect my children. Many of you have asked why Natalie wasn't at the memorial brunch on Sunday. It is with deep sadness that I have to share that Natalie is battling some severe mental health demons. We have tried to help her. We have tried to support her through her shopping addiction and her irrational outbursts. But after she became violent with me in our home, I had to make the hardest choice a parent can make. I had to call the police to save her from herself. Please pray for her. She is not herself. She is lost." It was a masterclass in character assassination. She did not call me a criminal. She called me lost. She framed my demand for my own money as a shopping addiction. She framed the bruises she gave me as implied self-harm. The comments were a chorus of sympathy for her. "You are so strong. Veronica, mental illness is so hard on the family. I always thought Natalie seemed a bit off lately." That last comment was from a woman I went to high school with, someone I had shared lunch with for 4 years. The fallout was immediate. People I had known my whole life in Salem stopped liking my posts. When I went to the grocery store near my apartment, I felt paranoid, wondering if the cashier had seen the mugshot that was now searchable online. But the real blow came at work. Northline Creative Studio was a hip, progressive agency. We prided ourselves on transparency and authentic storytelling. I was the lead storyteller. 3 weeks after the arrest, my creative director, Marcus, called me into his office. Marcus was a good guy. He wore beanies in the summer and drank kombucha. He liked me. But that day, he would not meet my eyes. "Nat, close the door," he said. I sat down. My heart began to hammer a frantic rhythm against my ribs. "We had a call from the client at Greenleaf Tech," Marcus said. "They are doing a background check on the team for the new security clearance levels for their project, and they found something. And then they did a Google search and found a Facebook post." My stomach dropped through the floor. "Marcus, it is a domestic dispute. It is a lie. My stepmother is—" "I believe you," Marcus interrupted, and I think he did. "But the client is conservative. They are worried about the instability. They use that word. They are worried about the optics of having a lead on their account who is currently in court-mandated anger management." He sighed. "I have to take you off the Greenleaf account, Nat, and I have to pull you from the pitch meeting for the bank next week. We cannot risk them doing a search and finding this." "So I am demoted," I said. My voice sounded small. "You are being sidelined," he corrected. "Just until this blows over. Just keep your head down. Do the back-end copy. Don't put your name on anything public for a while." I walked out of his office feeling like I was made of glass. I was invisible. I was radioactive. That night, the insomnia started. I would lay in bed in my tiny apartment, staring at the ceiling, and the moment I drifted off, I would hear the click of the lock. I would smell the dust of the study. I would feel the weight of Veronica's body slamming into me. I would wake up gasping, my sheets soaked in sweat, my heart racing at 140 beats per minute. I started checking the locks on my apartment door 3, 4, 5 times a night. I stopped going out. I stopped dating. I became exactly what Veronica said I was: isolated, paranoid, and unstable. I was 29 years old, and my life had shrunk to the size of my living room rug. One rainy Tuesday, when I was sitting on my floor eating cereal for dinner because I couldn't bring myself to cook, my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. Area code 208, Idaho. I almost didn't answer. I thought it might be a debt collector, or another friend calling to ask if the rumors were true. "Hello?" I whispered. "Natalie?" The voice was gravel and rusted iron. It sounded like old cigarettes and hard winters. "Grandpa?" I asked. "Henry Pierce, my father's father. He lived on a ranch outside of Coeur d'Alene. He and my father had fallen out 6 years ago, right after Dad married Veronica. Henry had called Veronica a copperhead snake in a polyester dress to her face at the wedding rehearsal. My father had demanded an apology. Henry had refused. They hadn't spoken since. "I heard about David," Henry said, "and I heard about what happened after." "I didn't do it, Grandpa," I said, and suddenly I was crying again. I was so tired of saying it. "I didn't hit her. She stole the money. She stole everything." "I know," Henry said. The words were so simple, so absolute, that I stopped breathing for a second. You believe me?" "I never liked that woman," Henry grunted. "I saw her eyes. She has the eyes of a coyote. She isolated David. She cut him off from me. She cut him off from his friends. And now she is trying to bury you." "She is winning," I sobbed. "She has the money. She has the house. She has the reputation. I have a criminal record and a mountain of debt." "She hasn't won yet," Henry said. "She has just won the first round because you weren't fighting. You were grieving." I heard the sound of a lighter clicking on the other end of the line. "Listen to me, girl," Henry said. "You are a Pierce. We are stubborn son of a guns. You are going to stop crying. You are going to go to work. You are going to eat a steak. And you are going to write everything down." "What?" "Document it," Henry commanded. "Every text, every email, every Facebook post. Take screenshots, save them to a hard drive, write down dates, times, everything she said to you in that room. Write down what the bank teller said. Write down what the lawyer said. Why? I asked. The police don't care. Not for the police, Henry said. For the war. These things turn. Natalie, liars always trip. They get greedy. She got away with $200,000. She got away with $60,000. She's going to want more. And when she reaches for more, she is going to make a mistake. And when she does, you need to be ready with a pile of paper so high it buries her. I don't have any money for a lawyer, Grandpa. I know, he said. His voice softened. Just a fraction. I don't have much liquid cash right now either. Cattle prices are down. But I am moving some things around. I am watching her. Nat, I have got a friend who is looking into things. You just hold on. Do not let her break you. That is what she wants. She wants you to fold so she doesn't have to look over her shoulder. Okay, I said. Okay, Grandpa? You are the only decent thing David left behind, Henry said. Don't you forget that. He hung up. I sat there for a long time, holding the phone. I wasn't fixed. I was still broke. I was still disgraced. But for the first time in months, I felt a tiny spark of heat in my chest. It wasn't hope, exactly. It was anger. But it was a cold, focused anger. I stood up. I went to my computer. I opened a new folder. I named it the V file. I started screenshotting. I saved the Facebook post where she called me an addict. I saved the comments. I wrote down the timeline of the bank transfers Mark had shown me. I wrote down the name of the bank manager. I worked until the sun came up. That was 6 months ago. For 6 months, I have been a ghost. I go to work. I do the grunt work. I come home, and I add to the file. I watch Veronica from afar. I watch her buy a new car. I watch her post photos of her charity work with the Heartland Family Foundation. I watch her erase my father from existence, replacing his memory with her own sainthood. I was waiting. I didn't know what I was waiting for. I thought maybe I was waiting for Henry to sell a cow and send me $500. I thought maybe I was waiting for karma. I did not know I was waiting for a ghost from the banking system. And that brings us back to tonight, to the rain on the window, to the scissors on the counter, to the $200,000 in cash that smells like justice. I looked at the note again. You always deserve this. Use it to finish what she started. I picked up the stack of bills. It was heavy. It was heavier than the phone I used to call the bail bondsman. It was heavier than the handcuffs. I walked over to my laptop. I opened the V file. I looked at the folder of evidence I had gathered. It was just a pile of digital paper. It was useless without a hammer to drive it home. I looked at the money. This was the hammer. I picked up my phone, the one with the cracked screen from where she kicked it, and I dialed the one number I knew would answer at 11 o'clock at night. Jasmine, I said when she picked up. Nat, are you okay? You sound weird. I am better than okay, I said. My voice didn't shake. I need you to come over and bring a bottle of the expensive stuff. We have work to do. What kind of work? We are going to hire a lawyer, I said. A shark, and we are going to burn a witch. Jasmine arrived at my apartment 20 minutes after I called her. She was wearing pajama pants tucked into rain boots and a trench coat, clutching a bottle of Pinot Noir like it was a holy relic. When she walked in, she didn't say hello. She just stared at the mountain of cash on my kitchen island. Is that... she started, her voice squeaking slightly. Is that real? It is real, I said. I counted it. It is exactly $211,950 to the dollar. It is the exact amount from the credit union account, the inheritance. Jasmine dropped her purse. She walked over to the money, reached out a hand, and then pulled it back as if the bills might bite her. Natalie, this is insane. Did you rob a bank? Please tell me you did not rob a bank in a fugue state. I found it in my mailbox, I said. With this? I handed her the note. You always deserve this. Use it to finish what she started. Jasmine read it twice. She looked at me, her eyes wide. Finish what she started. That is ominously specific. Do we call the police? We have to call the police, right? This is money laundering, or drug money, or something illegal. No police, I said quickly. The panic flared in my chest instantly. Jazz, think about it. If I call the cops, they seize the money as evidence. Then they interview me. Then they interview Veronica. She will spin it. She will say I stole it, or that I'm setting her up. I have a record. Remember? I am the crazy daughter who assaults her stepmother. They won't believe me. They will just take the money and lock me up. So what? Jasmine argued, uncorking the wine with a fierce twist. You just keep $200,000 of dirty cash under your mattress? You can't spend this, Nat. You can't buy a house with cash you can't explain. The IRS will eat you alive. I don't want to spend it, I said. I want to use it. Use it how? To bury her. Jasmine poured 2 large glasses of wine. She took a long sip, then looked at me. Okay, you sound like a Bond villain, but I get it. If you can't go to the cops, you need a different kind of shark. You need what your grandpa said. You need a lawyer. I can't afford a lawyer. I am still paying off my credit card debt from the bail. You have $200,000 on your counter. Jasmine gestured wildly. Pay them with that. I can't use this money to pay a retainer. It is evidence. Then we find a lawyer who works on contingency, Jasmine said firmly. Or we beg, but you need someone who understands money crimes, not a public defender. You need a specialist. We spent the next 3 hours on Google. We looked for elder financial abuse attorneys Portland, forensic accounting lawyers, and aggressive estate litigation. We filtered out the ones who looked too nice. We wanted mean. We wanted someone who looked like they ate nails for breakfast. We found Amanda Ruiz. Her website was stark black and white. No smiling families, no gavels, just a bio that listed her experience as a former federal prosecutor for financial crimes and a tagline, "We find the money they hid." I called her office the next morning. I didn't tell the receptionist about the cash. I just said, I have evidence of a 6-figure estate theft involving a forged power of attorney and money laundering through a charity. That got me an appointment. Amanda Ruiz's office was in the Pearl District, in a converted warehouse with exposed brick and glass walls. Amanda herself was a terrifyingly elegant woman in her 50s, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car. She did not offer me coffee. She sat behind a glass desk and listened. I told her everything: the cancer, the second marriage, the night in the study, the arrest, the Facebook posts. Then, I placed the heavy manila envelope on her desk. And then, I said, last night, this arrived. I opened the envelope. The stacks of cash slid out. Amanda did not gasp. She did not blink. She just leaned forward, picked up a bundle of $100 bills, and riffled through them with her thumb. Then she picked up the note. This, she said, tapping the paper with a manicured fingernail, is not a gift. This is a whistleblow. A what? Someone is scared, Amanda said. Her voice was cool and analytical. People don't give away $200,000 out of the kindness of their hearts, not in cash. This is get-out-of-jail money. Someone involved in Veronica's scheme has developed a conscience, or more likely, a fear of prosecution. They are trying to buy your silence or your forgiveness before the house of cards collapses. So Veronica didn't send it? Veronica is a narcissist, Amanda said. Narcissists do not give money back. They spend it and blame you for being poor. No, this is someone else, someone with access, someone who knows exactly how much was taken. She looked at me. You said there was a charity? The Heartland Family Foundation, I said. She started it 2 years ago. She posts about it all the time. They do community outreach? I am not sure. Amanda turned to her computer. She typed rapidly. If she is moving this kind of volume, she needs a vehicle. You can't just deposit $200,000 into a personal checking account without the IRS asking questions. But a charity is a beautiful black hole if you know how to work the tax code. She spun her monitor around. Here, she said, Heartland Family Foundation, registered 501c3, principal officer, Veronica Walsh, treasurer. Interesting. What? The treasurer is listed as TBD in the initial filing, but in the annual report, it is an external accounting firm. But look at the inflows. She pointed to a graph. 2 years ago, right around the time your father got sick, the foundation received a series of anonymous donations totaling nearly $80,000. Then, last year, another $150,000. The outflows are almost entirely administrative expenses and consulting fees paid to a company called VW Solutions. I whispered. Veronica Walsh. She is washing the money, Amanda said. She takes your father's assets, insurance payouts, maybe dragged out withdrawals from his accounts, donates them to her own charity to get a tax write-off, and then pays herself a salary from the charity for running it. It is clumsy, but effective if no one is looking. So she stole the money, donated it to herself, and then paid herself with it? Essentially, and this envelope, Amanda gestured to the cash, suggests that the money flow was not just her. You need a banker to override the flags on those kinds of cash movements. You need an accountant to cook the books for the charity. So who sent the money? That, Amanda said, a small, shark-like smile appearing on her face, is what we are going to find out, but we are not going to the police yet. We aren't? No, if we go to the police now, she claims the money on your desk is yours, or that she gave it to you, or that she has no idea where it came from. The trail is cold. We need to catch her in the act. We need to know who the leak is. She pushed the money back toward me. Put this in a safety deposit box. Do not spend a dime. This is Exhibit A. I will take your case on a contingency basis. If we win, and we will win, I take 30% of the total judgment plus fees, but we go for triple damages under the elder abuse statute. We are not just going for the $200,000, we are going for everything she has. I walked out of that office feeling lighter than I had in years. I went straight to a private vault facility downtown and locked the money away. 2 days later, the second envelope arrived. I was ready this time. I was wearing gloves when I opened the mailbox. It was a standard white business envelope. No return address. Postmarked from Portland. Inside, there was no cash, just a single sheet of paper. It was a photocopy of a bank statement, a monthly statement for an account I did not recognize. The header was cut off, so I couldn't see the account holder's name, but I could see the bank logo, Pacific Northwest Trust. 3 transactions were circled in red marker. October 14th, wire transfer out, $75,000. Ref. HFF donation. October 28th, cash withdrawal, $9,500. November 2, cash withdrawal, $9,500. Underneath the circled numbers, someone had written in the same jagged, disguised handwriting, "She used your father's death to fund this. Dig here." I stared at the paper, the withdrawals, $9,500. I knew enough about banking to know why that number mattered. Banks have to report any cash transaction over $10,000 to the federal government. It is called a CTR, a currency transaction report. By withdrawing just under that limit, you avoid the automatic report. It is called structuring, and it is a federal crime. Whoever sent this knew exactly what they were showing me. They were showing me that Veronica, or someone working for her, was systematically pulling cash out of the system in a way designed to evade detection. I called Amanda immediately. I scanned the document and sent it to her. "This is the smoking gun," Amanda said over the phone. Her voice was electric. "Structuring, that is a felony, and look at the date of the wire transfer, October 14th. That was 3 days after your father died." "Who sent this, Amanda?" I asked. "It has to be someone at the bank, right? Or an accountant?" "It is someone close," she said. "Someone who has physical access to these statements. But here is the thing. Natalie, Pacific Northwest Trust is a small regional bank. They don't have thousands of branches. If we can find out which branch handles the Heartland Family Foundation account, we can narrow down the list of employees who would see this." "How do we do that?" We don't, Amanda said. We wait. We let them think they are safe. We let the mole send us more. Every piece of paper they send is another nail in the coffin. In the meantime, I need you to go back through the V file. I need you to look for names. Did Veronica ever mention a banker? A friend who helped with finances? Did she have a new boyfriend? I went back to my computer. I opened the file. I started digging through the years of mental debris I had tried to forget. I remembered something, a name. 2 years ago, at a Thanksgiving dinner where I was forced to sit at the kids' table, Veronica had been bragging about how well her investments were doing. She had mentioned a man. Gary, she said. Gary at the branch is a wizard. He makes things happen that other banks say are impossible. I searched my memory. Gary. I went to LinkedIn. I searched Gary and Pacific Northwest Trust and Salem. A profile popped up. Gary Thorne, branch manager, Pacific Northwest Trust, Salem branch. I clicked on his photo. He was a nondescript man in his 40s, balding, with a weak chin and a smile that looked like he was apologizing for something. I scrolled down his profile, and there, in the volunteering section, was a recent entry. Board member, Heartland Family Foundation. My blood ran cold. Gary wasn't just her banker. He was on the board of her fake charity. He was the inside man. But was he the one sending the envelopes? I zoomed in on his picture. He looked soft. He looked like the kind of man Veronica would eat alive. Had she pushed him too far? Had she forced him to break the law? And now he was trying to wash his hands of it by giving me the money back? Or was it someone else? Was it Kayla? I thought about my stepsister. She was 19 now. She was still living in that house, watching her mother spend money that wasn't hers. Kayla, who had looked at me with terror in her eyes as the police dragged me away. Kayla, who knew exactly what her mother was capable of. I printed out Gary's profile. I pinned it to the corkboard I had set up in my living room, right next to the copy of the note. Dig here. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I wasn't the girl crying in the holding cell. I was a hunter. I picked up a red marker and drew a circle around Gary's face. Then I drew a line connecting him to Veronica. Then I drew a question mark next to Kayla's name. Okay, I whispered to the empty room. You want me to dig? I will dig until I hit bedrock. I pulled up the spreadsheet I had made of my father's known assets. I started cross-referencing them with the dates on the stolen bank statement. The math was starting to line up. The medical expenses Veronica claimed she paid were lies. The debts were fabrications. Every dollar she took had a footprint. And now, thanks to my anonymous friend, I had the map. I was going to destroy her. I wasn't going to do it with a vase or a scream. I was going to do it with Excel spreadsheets and subpoenas. I was going to take apart her life, brick by golden brick, until she was standing in the rubble with nothing but her lies to keep her warm. And for the first time since my father died, I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who just realized the gun in their hand is loaded. The digital war began on a Thursday night, and it started because Veronica got sloppy. According to the timeline we later reconstructed, Gary from Pacific Northwest Trust must have called her around 4 in the afternoon. He likely told her that the bank's compliance department was asking questions about the series of cash withdrawals under $10,000. He probably told her that the structuring flags had been tripped and that he could no longer hold back the internal audit team. Panic is a funny thing. For some people, it makes them freeze. For Veronica, it made her lash out. She needed a villain. She needed a smokescreen, and I was her favorite target. I was sitting on my couch, organizing the digital files from the V file onto an encrypted hard drive, when my phone buzzed. It was a notification from Facebook. Someone had tagged me in a post. My heart did that familiar, sickening flip. I opened the app. There it was, a wall of text, accompanied by a photo of Veronica looking teary-eyed in her kitchen, holding a mug of tea with both hands like she was trying to warm a frozen soul. Friends and family, the post began, I have tried to be silent. I have tried to protect the privacy of my late husband's daughter, even after she physically attacked me. But today, Things have escalated to a point I can no longer ignore. I have received disturbing information that Natalie is attempting to frame me for financial impropriety. I believe she has sent money to herself, money she likely stole or borrowed, to make it look like I am hiding assets. This is a classic symptom of her condition. She creates chaos to seek attention. I am terrified for her, and I am terrified of her. Please, if anyone sees her, do not engage. She is desperate and she is unwell. I read it twice. My hands were not shaking this time. They were steady. She was accusing me of the exact thing she had done. She was trying to get ahead of the story. She knew the money was out there. She knew someone had leaked it, but she didn't know who. So she was pinning it on me, painting me as a mastermind of self-sabotage. I called Amanda immediately. "Did you see it?" I asked when she picked up. "I am reading it now," Amanda said. Her voice was calm, almost amused. "She is scared. Natalie. She is flailing. This is the act of a woman who knows the walls are closing in. She is saying I sent the money to myself. She is saying I'm crazy again. People are going to believe her." "Read the comments," Amanda said. I scrolled down. "Oh my God. Veronica, I am so sorry. Stay safe. Why can't she just let you grieve?" "See?" I said, my voice rising. "They are buying it." "Not for long," Amanda said. "Natalie, until now, we have been playing defense. We have been collecting evidence in the dark. But she just made a public accusation about financial fraud. She just opened the door." "What do you mean?" "I mean," Amanda said, "that you are going to post a reply, and you are not going to be polite." I thought I wasn't supposed to say anything. "Strategy change," Amanda said sharply. "We have the bank statements. We have the photos. We have the note. If we stay silent now, her narrative sets like concrete. We need to break it while it is wet. Write a response. Send it to me for approval. Then post it. And tell your friend Jasmine to get her keyboard ready." I hung up. I opened a blank document. I stared at the blinking cursor. For 2 years, I had let her speak for me. I had let her tell the world I was selfish, lazy, and unstable. I had let her define my grief as madness. I typed until my fingers hurt. I sent the draft to Amanda. She made 2 edits. She told me to remove 1 adjective and to be very specific about the dates. Then she sent back a thumbs-up emoji. I took a deep breath. I attached 3 photos to the post. Photo 1. A picture of the bruise on my face from the night in the study. A photo I had taken in the police station bathroom but never showed anyone. Photo 2. A redacted image of the bank statement showing the wire transfer of $200,000 leaving my father's account 2 weeks before he died. Photo 3. The text of the note I received. "You always deserved this." I hit post. "My name is Natalie Pierce," I wrote, "and I am done being the villain in Veronica Walsh's fairy tale. For 2 years, my stepmother has told you I am mentally unstable. She told you I attacked her. The truth is, on the night she had me arrested, I had discovered she stole my father's life savings while he was on his deathbed. The bruise in this photo is from when she shoved me into a filing cabinet because I tried to stop her from taking a check for $60,000, money my father left specifically for me. She claims I am framing her, but facts do not care about feelings. The bank statement attached shows a transfer of over $200,000 executed by Veronica Walsh 14 days before David Pierce died. She claimed this money was for medical bills. The actual medical bills totaled less than $6,000. The rest went into her pocket, and then into a charity she controls. I did not send myself money. Someone on the inside, someone sick of her lies, sent it back to me, and I am not keeping it. I am using it to pay for the lawyer who is going to put her in prison. I am not unwell, Veronica. I am just finally fighting back. I sat back. The silence in the room was deafening. Then, the notifications started. At first, it was just my friends, the ones who had stayed loyal. Finally, speak your truth. Nat, I knew it. I knew she was lying. Then, Jasmine went to work. Jasmine did not just share the post. She weaponized it. She took screenshots of my post and Veronica's post. She went to Reddit. She went to Twitter. She posted them in forums dedicated to legal drama, to toxic families, to elder abuse. Her caption was simple: "Stepmom steals dying husband's money, frames daughter for assault, and then gets exposed by a mystery whistleblower. Grab your popcorn." It went viral in 3 hours. The internet loves a villain, but it loves a receipt even more. People started dissecting the bank statement. Amateur sleuths began looking up the Heartland Family Foundation. Look at the tax filings. One user commented on Twitter, 90% of their budget goes to consulting. This is a washing machine, not a charity. I am a forensic accountant. Another user wrote on Reddit, that structuring pattern on the withdrawal slip is textbook. The stepmother is going down for federal crimes, not just theft. By midnight, my post had 4,000 shares. Veronica's post, which had started with 100 sympathetic likes, was now being flooded with comments from strangers. "Show us the medical bills." "Veronica, why did you transfer the money before he died?" "Structuring is a felony." "Honey." Veronica started deleting comments. Then she turned off commenting. Then, around 2 a.m, her profile disappeared entirely. She had deactivated. But it was too late. The screenshots were everywhere. The next morning, I woke up to an email from a woman named Sarah Jenkins. The subject line was, "Investigative reporter, interview request." "Dear Natalie, I have been following the thread on Twitter regarding your father's estate and the allegations against Mrs. Walsh. I specialize in reporting on financial exploitation of the elderly and family fraud. I would love to tell your story properly, beyond a Facebook post. I can offer you anonymity if you prefer, but I think your voice needs to be heard." I forwarded it to Amanda. "Do it," Amanda replied. "But we control the narrative. We focus on the system failure. We focus on how the police believe the crying white lady over the daughter with the evidence. Make it bigger than just you." I met Sarah at a coffee shop in the Pearl District. She was young, sharp, and had a recorder that she set on the table between us. "Why now?" she asked me. "Why speak up now after 2 years?" "Because of the envelope," I said. "Because someone else was brave enough to break the law to give me a chance. I realized that if a stranger could risk their job to help me, I could risk my reputation to help myself." The article ran on Sunday. It was not a small blog post. It was a feature in a major online outlet. The headline read, "The $200,000 Betrayal: How One Daughter Was Erased by Her Father's Widow, and the Mystery Package That Changed Everything." It was a bombshell. Sarah laid it all out. She interviewed a legal expert, Amanda, who explained the mechanics of the theft. She interviewed Henry Pierce, who gave a scathing quote, "Veronica Walsh saw my son as a checkbook with a pulse. When the pulse stopped, she just kept writing checks." And then, the article dropped the twist. It described the envelope. It described the note. "You always deserved this." It turned me from a victim into a protagonist. I wasn't the crazy girl anymore. I was the Count of Monte Cristo in a thrift store sweater. The public sentiment shifted so fast it gave me whiplash. I received messages from people I hadn't spoken to in 10 years. "I am so sorry I didn't believe you. My stepmom did the exact same thing to us. Keep fighting. Natalie." But the most important reaction wasn't on the internet. It was in the real world. On Monday morning, Amanda called me. "We have movement," she said. "Did Veronica call?" "No," Amanda said. "Better. The district attorney called. They saw the article. They saw the allegations about the structuring and the charity fraud. They are opening an inquiry." "They are?" Public pressure is a powerful drug. Natalie, no DA wants to be seen as ignoring a viral case of elder abuse. They are pulling the police report from your arrest. They are going to re-examine the evidence. What does that mean for Veronica? It means she is not just fighting a civil lawsuit from us anymore, Amanda said. She is fighting a multi-front war, and she is doing it alone, because I guarantee you, whoever sent that money, they are already cutting a deal. I hung up the phone and walked to my window. The rain had stopped. The clouds over Portland were breaking apart. revealing a sliver of pale, cold blue sky. I checked Facebook one last time. Someone had posted a screenshot of Veronica's old profile picture, the one of her smiling with my father, and captioned it, "The Face of Greed." I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't joy. It was cleaner than that. It was the feeling of a heavy weight being lifted, inch by inch. She had tried to use the internet to bury me. She thought she could control the story because she was the respectable widow and I was the troubled daughter. She forgot that the internet is a hive mind, and once the hive smells a liar, it does not stop stinging. I looked at the corkboard in my living room. I looked at the red circle around Gary Thorne's face. "You are next, Gary," I whispered. I didn't know then that Gary was already sitting in a room with a federal agent, sweating through his cheap suit, ready to trade Veronica's freedom for his own. The tide had turned, and it was coming in fast. The transition from the court of public opinion to a court of law is a shift from noise to silence. On the internet, you win by shouting the loudest. In a courtroom, you win by paper. And thanks to Amanda Ruiz, we had a mountain of it. Amanda filed the civil suit on a rainy Tuesday in March. The complaint was a heavy document, 60 pages of accusations ranging from conversion of assets and unjust enrichment to elder financial abuse and assault. We were not just asking for the money back. We were asking for punitive damages. We were asking for legal fees. We were asking for the destruction of Veronica's financial life. The discovery phase, the period where both sides have to show their cards, was where the first mask slipped. Veronica's lawyer, a slick man named Mr. Sterling, who wore suits that were too shiny, tried to block us. He called our requests for the Heartland Family Foundation's records invasive and irrelevant, but the judge, a stern woman named Judge Patterson who seemed to have a low tolerance for theatrics, ordered them to hand it over. When the boxes arrived at Amanda's office, we spent 3 days swimming in paper. It was in the third box, buried under receipts for catering consulting, that we found the emails. Veronica had been careful with the bank statements, but she was arrogant with her emails. She thought deleting them from her inbox was enough. She did not understand that servers keep everything. "Look at this," Amanda said, sliding a printed email across the conference table. It was dated 2 months before my father died. It was from Veronica to an email address at Pacific Northwest Trust. Subject: the sponsorship. "Gary, I appreciate you handling the overrides on the cash movements. As discussed, if the bank can continue to support the special handling of the family consolidation, I will ensure that Heartland Family Foundation uses Pacific Northwest Trust as the exclusive sponsor for our upcoming gala. It will be great press for you, and of course, I will keep our arrangement regarding the fee structure between us." "She is bribing him," I said. "She is bribing the bank manager to look the other way on the structuring." "It is better than bribery," Amanda said, her eyes gleaming. "It is conspiracy. She is explicitly linking the special handling of the funds, which is code for the theft, to a quid pro quo. And look at the recipient. Gary Thorne, the man whose face was circled in red on my corkboard, the man I suspected had sent me the envelope. If Gary received this," I said slowly, "and he is the one who sent me the money, then he is turning on her to save himself." "Exactly," Amanda said. "He knows this email exists. He knows that if we subpoena the bank's internal server, we find it. He is trying to mitigate his sentence by being the anonymous whistleblower. He is handing us the knife to cut her throat." The trial began 2 months later. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. It smelled of floor wax and old wood. Veronica sat at the defense table wearing a soft pink cardigan and a pearl necklace. She looked small. She looked fragile. She had dyed her hair back to a natural brown, abandoning the blonde highlights she usually favored. She was playing the role of the grieving, persecuted widow to perfection. I sat next to Amanda. I wore a dark blue suit. I did not look at Veronica. I looked at the judge. Mr. Sterling's opening statement was predictable. He painted a picture of me that was almost impressive in its fiction. "Natalie Pierce is a woman in pain," he told the jury, his voice dripping with faux sympathy. She lost her mother young. She never accepted her father's new happiness. She has a history of financial instability and, sadly, a documented history of violence against my client. This lawsuit is not about justice. It is about revenge. It is a shakedown by an estranged daughter who believes she is entitled to money that was never hers. He brought up my arrest. He brought up the shopping addiction Veronica had invented on Facebook. He brought up the fact that I had pleaded no contest to the disturbing the peace charge. She is a convicted criminal, he said, pointing a finger at me. Do not let her use this court to abuse her victim again. I felt the eyes of the jury on me. I kept my face blank. Wait, I told myself. Just wait. Veronica took the stand on the second day. She cried. She actually produced real tears. She told the jury about how hard it was to care for a dying husband. She talked about the crushing medical debt that forced her to consolidate the accounts. I promised David I would take care of the family, she sobbed. I moved the money to protect it from reckless spending. I knew Natalie was in debt. I knew she was struggling. I just wanted to hold it in trust. And the night in the study? Mr. Sterling asked. The night Ms. Pierce claims you assaulted her? She came in screaming, Veronica whispered. She was demanding cash. She said she knew David had a secret check. When I told her there was no check, she lunged at me. She threw herself against the furniture. She was hurting herself to scare me. I had to lock the door to protect the children. It was a compelling performance. If I didn't know the truth, I might have believed her. Then it was Amanda's turn. Mrs. Walsh, Amanda said, standing up. She did not hold any notes. She walked to the podium with the confidence of an executioner. You claim that Natalie was screaming and throwing herself around the room? Yes, Veronica sniffed. And you claim you never touched her? I would never hurt David's daughter. And you claim she said she knew about a secret check? Yes, she was raving about it. Interesting, Amanda said, because we have a witness who heard something very different. Veronica frowned. No one else was in the room. Not in the room, Amanda corrected, but next door. Amanda turned to the judge. Your Honor, the plaintiff would like to introduce Exhibit G. This is audio footage recovered from the Ring security camera of Mrs. Gladys Higgins, the neighbor directly adjacent to the Walsh residence. The camera is located on the side porch, 12 feet from the window of the study. Veronica's face went pale. The pink cardigan suddenly seemed to lose its softness. Amanda pressed play on the laptop connected to the court's speaker system. The audio was grainy, mixed with the sound of wind, but the voices were unmistakable. Audio. A loud thud. My voice, screaming, "Let go! That is mine!" Veronica's voice. Shrill, clear. "You stupid, selfish girl! Give it to me!" Audio. Another thud. The sound of something breaking. Veronica's voice. "You do not deserve a penny of this." Silence filled the courtroom. The echo of Veronica's voice, hateful, greedy, violent, hung in the air. It was not the voice of a scared victim. It was the voice of a predator. "You do not deserve a penny of this," Amanda repeated. She held up the note from the envelope. "Does that sentence sound familiar? Mrs. Walsh?" I was upset," Veronica stammered. "She was attacking me." "It sounded like you were demanding something from her," Amanda said. "And shortly after that recording, the police found Natalie with a head injury, and you had $60,000 in your bra, which brings us to the check." "There was no check," Veronica insisted, though her voice was higher now, tighter. "Call our next witness," Amanda said. The bailiff opened the doors. "Calling Kayla Walsh to the stand?" The color drained from Veronica's face completely. She half rose from her chair. "Kayla?" she whispered. Kayla walked in. She was 19 now. She wore a gray sweater and black slacks. She looked tired. She looked like she had aged 10 years in the last 2. She refused to look at her mother. She took the oath. She sat down. "Kayla," Amanda said gently, "I know this is hard. Can you tell the court what happened the night Natalie was arrested?" Kayla gripped the edges of the witness box. Her knuckles were white. Mom, My mother told us to go outside, but I didn't go all the way. I stood by the door. I listened. What did you hear? I heard them fighting over a bag, Kayla said quietly. I heard Natalie yell that Mom stole the money, and then I heard a crash, and then… She took a deep breath. When the police took Natalie away, I went back inside. Mom was in the kitchen. She was drinking wine. She was happy. Did she say anything to you? She told me. Kayla's voice broke. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. She told me. I made sure that bitch will never touch a dime. It is all ours now. A gasp went through the gallery. And did you see anything else? Amanda asked. Yes, Kayla whispered. Later that night, I saw her open the floor safe in her closet. She put a white envelope inside. It had the logo of Mr. Ellison's law firm on it. I knew what it was because I had seen it in Natalie's bag earlier. Veronica's lawyer shot up. Objection! Hearsay! Overruled, the judge said. The witness is describing her direct observations. Mr. Sterling tried to salvage it on cross-examination. He stood up, buttoning his jacket, trying to look imposing. Kayla, he said, you and your mother have had a difficult relationship lately, haven't you? You dropped out of college. She cut off your allowance. Isn't it true that you are angry with her for setting rules? I am angry with her, Kayla said, her voice gaining strength. But not because of allowance. Isn't it true you are testifying today because you made a deal with Natalie to get a cut of the money? No, Kayla shouted. I am testifying because she hit Natalie. I am testifying because Natalie raised me. Natalie cooked my dinner when Mom was at the spa. Natalie drove me to dance class. Natalie was the only mother I actually had. She turned to look at Veronica. You let them take her to jail. Mom, you let them put handcuffs on her, and you laughed. That is when I knew. I knew you would do it to me too, eventually. Veronica put her face in her hands. She wasn't acting anymore. She was shrinking. Her own daughter had just delivered the death blow. The final nail in the coffin was the financial expert. Amanda hired a forensic accountant named Dr. Eris. He was a dry, boring man who loved charts. He set up an easel. This is the flow of funds, Dr. Eris explained, using a laser pointer. Here is the account of David Pierce. 2 weeks pre-mortem. $212,000 is wired to this holding account. 3 days later, it moves to the Heartland Family Foundation. It is categorized as an anonymous donation. He flipped the chart. Here are the outflows from the foundation. Over the next 18 months, $150,000 is paid out to VW Solutions for consulting. The registered owner of VW Solutions is Veronica Walsh. The other $60,000 is withdrawn in cash, in increments of $9,500, to avoid federal reporting limits. He looked at the jury. This is not a charity. This is a pass-through entity designed to launder stolen inheritance into personal income. And the total amount misappropriated? Amanda asked. Including the $60,000 cashier's check that was never deposited, but also never returned to the estate. We are looking at nearly $300,000, excluding interest. Amanda rested her case. The courtroom felt different when we left that day. The air was lighter. Mr. Sterling looked defeated. He was packing his briefcase slowly, avoiding eye contact with his client. Veronica sat alone at the table, staring at the empty witness box where her daughter had just dismantled her life. I walked out into the hallway. Kayla was sitting on a bench, her head in her hands. I sat down next to her. I didn't say anything. I just reached out and took her hand. She flinched, then squeezed back. I am sorry, she whispered. I am so sorry I didn't open the door. You opened it today, I said. That is what matters. Amanda walked over to us. She looked like a general who had just won the war, but was already scanning the horizon for the next battle. Sterling wants to settle, she said. He knows the jury is going to crucify her. He is offering the full amount of the inheritance plus legal fees if we drop the fraud charges. No, I said. No settlement. I want the verdict. I want it on the record. I want the judge to say the word liar. Good answer, Amanda smiled. But there is something else. What? I got a call during the recess. Amanda lowered her voice. From the federal prosecutor's office. They have been watching the trial. Specifically, the testimony about the bank and the email. Gary, I said. They picked him up this morning, Amanda said. He is cooperating. He gave them everything. The emails, the falsified CTRs, the whole scheme. Did he say he sent the money? That is the interesting part, Amanda said. She frowned slightly. Gary admitted to the structuring. He admitted to the bribery, but when the feds asked him about the $200,000 in cash sent to your apartment, he denied it. My heart skipped a beat. He denied it? But he is already confessing to felonies. Why lie about returning the money? He said he didn't have the cash, Amanda said. He said Veronica spent it as fast as she stole it. He claims the accounts were drained. He said there was no pile of cash to send. I looked at Amanda. If Gary didn't send it, and Veronica certainly didn't send it, then who did? I don't know, Amanda said. But whoever it is, they had $200,000 of their own money to burn, or... She trailed off. Or what? Or they hated Veronica enough to buy you a sword, Amanda said. I thought about the note. Use it to finish what she started. The mystery wasn't over. We were winning the battle in the light, but there was still a shadow player on the board. Someone powerful, someone rich, and someone who knew my father's story intimately. I looked down the hallway. The elevator doors opened. An old man walked out. He was leaning on a cane, wearing a cowboy hat that looked out of place in the city courthouse. Henry. He stopped when he saw me. He didn't smile. He just nodded, a slow, deliberate tip of his brim. My breath caught in my throat. I am moving some things around. He had told me on the phone. I don't have much liquid cash right now. Cattle prices are down. But Henry had land. He had a ranch that had been in the family for 4 generations. I looked at Amanda. Grandpa Henry, I whispered. He sold the ranch. What? The money, I said, tears suddenly pricking my eyes. It wasn't the stolen money. The stolen money was gone. Veronica spent it. The money in the envelope. It was him. He sold his land to give me back my inheritance so I could afford to fight her. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The jagged handwriting on the envelope. It looked like someone writing with their non-dominant hand, or someone with arthritis, someone old. You always deserved this. It wasn't about the money being returned. It was about the money being given. I stood up and walked toward him. He looked stubborn and proud and tired. Grandpa, I said. Did you get her? He asked, his voice rough. We got her, I said. Good, he said. He looked at the courtroom doors. Then it was worth the acreage. I hugged him. I hugged him right there in the hallway of the Multnomah County Courthouse, burying my face in his wool coat that smelled of horses and rain. The mystery of the envelope was solved, but the weight of it was heavier now. It wasn't just justice, it was a sacrifice. And I was going to make sure Veronica paid for every single acre. The courtroom air was stagnant, heavy with the scent of floor wax and the lingering tension of Kayla's testimony. I watched Veronica at the defense table. She was slumped in her chair, a portrait of a woman whose meticulously constructed facade was beginning to crack. She looked small. She looked breakable. But she still had that glint in her eye, the look of a gambler who thinks she has one last ace up her sleeve. She probably thought she could still charm the jury, or perhaps appeal to the judge's sympathy as a confused widow. She did not know that Amanda Ruiz was about to drop a nuclear bomb. Your Honor, Amanda said, her voice cutting through the silence like a razor. The plaintiff calls Henry Pierce to the stand. A ripple of confusion went through the gallery. Even Mr. Sterling, Veronica's lawyer, looked up from his notes with a frown. They expected Henry to be a character witness. They expected an angry old man from Idaho who would grumble about family values and offer nothing of legal substance. I watched my grandfather walk to the stand. He moved with a slow, deliberate gait, his cane tapping a steady rhythm on the hardwood floor. He was wearing his Sunday best, a charcoal suit that was clearly 20 years old, a bolo tie with a piece of turquoise the size of a fist, and his cowboy hat held respectfully in his hands. He looked out of place in this modern, sterile room, like a mountain that had been dropped into a shopping mall. He took the oath. He sat down. He placed his hat on the railing. "Mr. Pierce," Amanda began, "can you state your relationship to the parties involved?" "I am David Pierce's father," Henry said. His voice was gravel and smoke. "Natalie is my granddaughter, and that woman," he pointed a calloused finger at Veronica, not even looking at her, "is the mistake my son made when he was too lonely to think straight." "Objection." Mr. Sterling sighed, half-heartedly. "Sustained," the judge said, though she looked interested. "Mr. Pierce, please stick to the facts." "The fact is," Henry continued, unbothered, "I cut my son off 6 years ago, not because I stopped loving him, but because I saw what she was. I saw a copperhead snake in a polyester dress. I told David that as long as she was controlling his checkbook, I would not be part of his life. It was the hardest thing I ever did, and I regret it every day, because it left him alone with her." "Mr. Pierce," Amanda said, steering him back, "let us talk about the financial evidence. You heard the testimony regarding the envelope of cash sent to Natalie. The defense claims this money does not exist, or that Natalie fabricated it." "It exists," Henry said. $211,950. "How do you know that?" "Because," Henry said, reaching into his jacket pocket and pulling out a digital recorder, "I am the reason it was sent." I froze. I stared at him, in the hallway. I had hugged him, thinking he had sold his ranch to give me the money. I thought he was the sender. "Clarify that for the court," Amanda said. "I did not send the money," Henry said, shattering my assumption in 4 words. "I am a rancher. I am land-rich and cash-poor. I did not have $200,000 lying around to mail to Portland, but I knew who did." He turned to look directly at Veronica. For the first time, she looked genuinely terrified. "When David died," Henry said, "I hired a private investigator, a man named Jim Weaver. I told him to follow the money. Jim tracked the transfers from David's accounts to that fake charity of hers, and then he tracked the kickbacks. He found the weak link." "And who was the weak link?" Amanda asked. "Gary Thorne," Henry said, "the branch manager at Pacific Northwest Trust." "The man currently in federal custody?" "The very same." Henry nodded. "About 6 months ago, right before Natalie received that package, I took a trip to Salem. I walked into Mr. Thorne's office. I locked the door, and I put a folder of photos on his desk. Photos of him meeting Veronica, copies of the emails my investigator intercepted, and I gave him a choice." Henry pressed a button on the digital recorder. The sound was crystal clear, amplified by the courtroom microphone. "Voice 1. Henry, you have 2 choices. Son, choice A is, I walk out of here and go straight to the FBI. You go to prison for 20 years for money laundering and fraud." Voice 2. Gary, shaky, terrified. "Please, she made me do it. She said she would ruin me. She said she knew the regional vice president." Voice 1. "I don't care what she said. Here is choice B. You take the exact amount that was stolen from my granddaughter's inheritance, the money you helped her wash, and you return it to Natalie, in cash, untraceable. And you give her the evidence to bury Veronica. You do that, and I give you a 3-month head start before I call the feds." The recording clicked off. The courtroom was dead silent. I sat there, my mouth slightly open. It wasn't Henry's money. It was Gary's. Gary had liquidated his own assets, or perhaps money he had skimmed from other scams, to buy his freedom. He had sent me the cash and the note. Use it to finish what she started, because he wanted me to take Veronica down so he wouldn't have to. The jagged handwriting wasn't arthritis. It was a desperate man trying to disguise his identity. "So," Amanda said, "the money Natalie received was essentially restitution, paid by a co-conspirator?" "It was a down payment on his conscience," Henry said. "Gary thought if he gave the money back, he might get leniency when the hammer finally dropped. He sent the money. He sent the bank statements. He turned on Veronica to save his own skin. Amanda turned to the jury. So, the $200,000 was not Natalie staging a crime. It was the return of stolen property by a guilty man acting under pressure from Mr. Pierce. She walked back to her table, but she didn't sit down. She looked at Veronica. "One last thing. Mr. Pierce," Amanda said. "There has been a lot of talk about motives. The defense claims Veronica Walsh stole the money because she was worried about her future. She claims she was destitute." Henry laughed. It was a dry barking sound. "She was worried about her future. All right, she was worried because she knew what was in my will." Veronica's head snapped up. "Your will?" Amanda asked. "David was my only son," Henry said. "Veronica assumed that when I died, everything would go to David, and since she controlled David, eventually it would go to her. She had her eyes on the Triple Bar Ranch, 3,000 acres of prime Idaho grazing land. She had her eyes on my investment portfolio." Henry leaned forward. "But what you didn't know, Veronica," he said, addressing her directly, ignoring the judge, "is that the day you married my son, I rewrote my will." Veronica went still. "I disinherited David," Henry said. "I knew you would bleed him dry. I wasn't going to let you touch my land. I created a trust, the Triple Bar Ranch, the stocks, the bonds, everything skips a generation." He looked at me. His eyes were soft. For just a second. "It all goes to Natalie," he said. I gasped. I couldn't help it. "But," Henry added, raising a finger, "there was a condition. The trust had a stipulation. Natalie could only inherit if she proved she was capable of protecting it, if she proved she had a spine, if she let you walk all over her. Veronica. The money was going to go to a donkey sanctuary." A few people in the gallery laughed nervously. "That is why I told her to document everything," Henry said. "That is why I didn't send her money for a lawyer. I needed to see if she would fight. I needed to see if she was a Pierce. And by God, she is—" He turned back to Veronica. "You stole $200,000 from a dying man," Henry said. "And in doing so, you lost out on an estate worth $15 million. If you had just treated my granddaughter with a shred of decency, you might have seen some of it, but you got greedy. You wanted the crumbs on the table, so you set fire to the bakery." The color drained from Veronica's face so completely she looked like a corpse. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She hadn't just lost the lawsuit. She hadn't just lost her freedom. She had lost the fortune she had spent 10 years waiting for. She had played the long game, waiting for David to die, waiting for Henry to die. And she had lost. She had been outplayed by a terrified bank manager and an old cowboy she thought was too stupid to notice her schemes. "No," Veronica whispered. "That is not true. David said—" "David didn't know," Henry said. "I didn't tell him. I couldn't risk you finding out. You played him, Veronica, but you never played me." "Mr." Sterling put his head in his hands. He knew it was over. There was no coming back from this. His client wasn't just a thief. She was a failed gold digger who had destroyed her own golden goose. "No further questions," Amanda said. Henry stood up. He took his hat. He walked off the stand, his cane tapping that steady, relentless rhythm. As he passed the defense table, Veronica looked up at him. Her eyes were filled with a mixture of hatred and absolute despair. Henry didn't even look down. He just kept walking. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged her gavel. But it was useless. The story was too big. The twist was too sharp. The reporters in the back row were already running for the doors. I sat there, stunned. I looked at the envelope of money that was sitting on the evidence table. The money Gary sent. I thought about the ranch in Idaho. I thought about the years of insults, the years of feeling small and helpless. It turned out I wasn't helpless. I was being forged. Henry hadn't abandoned me. He had been sharpening me. He knew that to defeat a monster like Veronica, I couldn't just be a victim. I had to become a warrior. And warriors are not born. they are made in the fire. I looked at Veronica one last time. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring into the middle distance, doing the math in her head, subtracting $15 million from zero. The hearing was technically over, but the verdict was already written on her face. She was done. She was bankrupt. She was alone. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel afraid of her. I felt pity. It was a cold, distant pity, like looking at a bug trapped in amber. She had spent her whole life grasping for things, and in the end, she had grabbed nothing but air. "Ready to go?" Amanda asked, touching my arm. "Yes," I said. "I am ready." We walked out of the courtroom. The cameras were waiting. The microphones were thrust in my face. Natalie, did you know about the will? How do you feel about your grandfather's testimony? Is it true you are inheriting the ranch?" I stopped. I looked at the cameras. I thought about the scared girl who had been handcuffed in her father's study. I thought about the girl who ate a gas station cupcake on her birthday. "I don't care about the money," I said into the microphones. My voice was steady. "I care about the truth. And today, the truth finally got its day in court. Veronica Walsh is a thief, and she picked the wrong family to rob." I pushed through the crowd, finding Henry waiting for me by the elevators. "You are a hard man, Henry Pierce," I said to him. "Life is hard, kid," he said, putting his hat back on. "But you are harder. Let's go get a steak. I am buying, and this time, I actually have the cash." I laughed. It was a real laugh, loud and unburdened. The sound of it echoed in the marble hallway, chasing away the ghosts of the past. The nightmare was over. The waking up had just begun. The sound of a gavel hitting mahogany is final. It is a sharp, wooden crack that cuts through the air like a gunshot, signaling that the talking is over and the consequences have begun. I sat very still in my chair next to Amanda. My hands were folded in my lap. I was breathing in a rhythm I had practiced for weeks. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. I needed that rhythm because my heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Judge Patterson did not look up from her papers immediately. She adjusted her glasses. She took a sip of water. The silence in the courtroom was thick enough to choke on. Veronica was staring at the judge, her face a mask of crumbling plaster. She looked like she was trying to hold her expression together with sheer willpower, but the cracks were showing around her eyes and mouth. "In the matter of Pierce versus Walsh," the judge began, her voice level and devoid of emotion. "Based on the overwhelming evidence presented, including financial records, witness testimony, and audio recordings, this court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Natalie Pierce." I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 2 years. "The court finds that the defendant, Veronica Walsh, engaged in a systematic conversion of estate assets," the judge continued. "She violated her fiduciary duty as power of attorney, she committed elder financial abuse, and she is liable for the full restitution of the misappropriated funds." Veronica let out a small, strangled sound. Mr. Sterling, her lawyer, put a hand on her arm to silence her. "The defendant is ordered to pay the plaintiff the sum of $212,000 in compensatory damages," the judge read, "plus statutory interest calculated from the date of the theft. Furthermore, under the Elder Abuse Act, the court awards treble damages. The total judgment against Veronica Walsh is $636,000. $636,000. The number hung in the air. It was ruinous. It was everything she had. It was the house. It was the cars. It was the clothes. It was her future. "Additionally," the judge said, looking directly at Veronica now, "given the severity of the findings, specifically regarding the structuring of cash withdrawals and the fraudulent use of a charitable organization, I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for immediate criminal prosecution on charges of grand larceny, money laundering, and fraud." Veronica gasped. "No," she whispered. "No, you cannot. I am a mother." "You were a fiduciary, Mrs. Walsh," the judge said coldly, "and you used that position to rob a dying man and frame his daughter, Court is adjourned. The gavel came down one last time. Pandemonium broke out. Reporters were shouting questions. Amanda turned to me and squeezed my shoulder hard. "We did it! Natalie, we got her!" But it wasn't over. As the judge left the bench, the side doors opened. 2 uniformed officers walked in, followed by a man in a suit I recognized as the assistant district attorney. They walked straight to the defense table. "Veronica Walsh?" the officer asked. "What is this?" Veronica shrieked, standing up. "My lawyer said we could appeal." "You can appeal the civil judgment," the officer said, pulling a pair of metal cuffs from his belt. "But this is an arrest warrant. You are under arrest for money laundering and wire fraud." "Kayla!" Veronica screamed, turning to the gallery. "Kayla, tell them I am a good mother." Kayla was sitting in the front row. She was crying, her face buried in her hands. She did not look up. She did not move to help. I stood up. I felt a strange, magnetic pull. I walked toward the defense table. The officers were instructing Veronica to put her hands behind her back. She was struggling, her dignity completely gone. She looked wild, her hair falling out of its pins, her eyes darting around the room looking for an exit that didn't exist. Then, she saw me. She stopped struggling. The officers clicked the cuffs onto her wrists. The sound was distinct. Click, click. It was the same sound I had heard the night she had me arrested. The same sound that had haunted my nightmares for 2 years. But this time, the metal was on her skin. I walked until I was only 2 feet away. The officer stepped between us, holding up a hand to stop me, but I didn't try to touch her. I just wanted her to see me. I wanted her to see the face of the girl who didn't matter. She looked at me with pure venom, even in chains, even facing prison. She hated me. "Are you happy?" she hissed. "You ungrateful little brat. I hope you choke on that money." I reached into my pocket. I pulled out the small, folded piece of paper I had carried with me every day since I found the envelope. The paper was soft now, worn from being touched 1,000 times. I unfolded it. I held it up so she could read the jagged handwriting. "You always deserved this." I looked her in the eye. "Do you recognize the phrasing, Veronica?" I asked softly. She stared at the note. Her eyes widened. "That is what you said to me," I whispered. "That night in the study, before you hit me, you said I didn't deserve a penny, remember?" She said nothing. Her chest was heaving. "The note says I always deserved it," I said. "And the note was right. But this," I gestured to the handcuffs, to the officers, to the ruined life she was about to step into. "This is for you. You earned every bit of this." I leaned in closer, dropping my voice so only she could hear. "Use it to finish what you started," I quoted back to her. "But this time, the ending is mine." Veronica's face crumpled. The venom vanished, replaced by a sudden, terrifying realization of her own powerlessness. She opened her mouth to speak, to curse me again, but no words came out. She just looked old. "Let's go, ma'am," the officer said, taking her elbow. They led her away. I watched her walk out the double doors. She didn't look back. She walked with her head down, her shoulders hunched, a small, defeated figure in a courtroom full of people who finally knew her name. I turned around. Kayla was standing by the railing. She looked like a ghost. Her face was swollen from crying. She looked at me, unsure of what to do. I didn't hesitate. I walked over and opened my arms. Kayla collapsed into me. She sobbed into my shoulder, holding onto my jacket like she was drowning. "I am sorry," she choked out. "I am so sorry, Nat. I hate her. I love her and I hate her." "I know," I said, smoothing her hair. "It is okay to feel both. It is over now. Kayla, you are safe. She can't hurt you anymore." "She is going to prison," Kayla whispered. "What am I going to do? Where am I going to live?" "You figure it out," I said gently. "One day at a time, the house will probably be seized to pay the judgment, but there is money in the trust for your school. Grandpa Henry made sure of that. You are not alone." She pulled back and looked at me. Are you going to leave?" Go back to Portland and never talk to us again? I am going back to Portland, I said. But I am not disappearing. I am your sister. That doesn't change just because your mother is a criminal. She nodded, wiping her eyes. It wasn't a happy ending for her. Her family had imploded, but at least the lies were gone. She could build something real on the rubble. I walked out of the courtroom and into the hallway. The air felt cooler out here. Henry was waiting by the elevators. He was leaning on his cane, watching the chaos with a detached, stoic expression. When he saw me, he straightened up. He didn't smile. Henry Pierce wasn't a man who smiled just because he won. He understood the cost of the war. She is gone, I said. Good riddance, Henry grunted. Did she cry? No, I said. She tried to curse me. Figures, Henry said. A scorpion is a scorpion until the boot comes down. He reached into the inner pocket of his jacket. He pulled out a white envelope. It was thinner than the one Gary had sent. It wasn't full of cash. Here, he said, pressing it into my hand. What is this, Grandpa? More tests? No, he said. The test is over. You passed. This is just something I should have said a long time ago. He looked at me, his blue eyes watery with age but sharp as steel. Your father was a weak man. Natalie, he said. I loved him, but he was weak. He let people run over him because he wanted peace more than he wanted respect. I was afraid you were the same. I was afraid you were just going to roll over and let the world eat you. He paused. He took a breath that rattled in his chest. I was wrong, he said. You have got your mother's heart, but you have got my spine. You did what none of us could do. You cleaned the house. He tapped the envelope in my hand. Read it when you get home. And don't sell the ranch yet. Cattle prices are coming back up. I won't sell the ranch, I promised. Good girl, he said. He tipped his hat. I am going to get a driver to take me to the airport. I miss my dogs. He turned and walked away, the tap-tap-tap of his cane fading down the long marble corridor. I drove back to Portland that night. The rain had started again, washing the highway clean. I drove in silence. I didn't need music. My head was full of the sound of the gavel and the click of the handcuffs. When I got to my apartment, it felt different. It didn't feel like a bunker anymore. It felt like a home. I walked to the kitchen island. I placed the two envelopes side by side on the quartz countertop. The first one was the manila envelope Gary had sent. It was empty now, just a torn wrapper and the note. You always deserved this. It was a relic of the battle. It smelled of old fear and adrenaline. The second one was the white envelope from Henry. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of lined notebook paper. Henry's handwriting was spidery and elegant, an old-school script that they don't teach anymore. Dear Natalie, I know I wasn't there when you needed me most. I thought tough love was the only way to make you strong. Maybe I was right. Or maybe I was just a stubborn old fool. Probably both. The ranch is yours. The money is yours. But the most important thing you have now is your name. You cleared it. You stood up. You faced the ugly truth about the people we love. And you didn't blink. That is the hardest thing a person can do. Most people would rather live a lie than face a painful truth. You chose the pain, and you found the freedom on the other side. Be proud of your scars, girl. They prove you survived. Love, Grandpa. I put the letter down. I felt tears pricking my eyes. But they weren't the hot, angry tears of the last 2 years. They were cool. They were healing. I looked at the two notes. One was a command to fight. The other was a permission to rest. I picked up the first note, the jagged, anonymous scrawl. I walked over to the small bookshelf in the corner of my living room. I had a small, silver picture frame there, empty, waiting for a photo I never took. I slipped the note inside the glass. You always deserved this. I placed it on the shelf. It wasn't a trophy of war. It was a reminder that I wasn't the girl who cooked the burgers and ate the smashed cupcake anymore. I wasn't the girl who signed the papers to keep the peace. I was the girl who burned the house down to kill the rats. I walked to the sliding glass door and opened it. The cold night air rushed in, smelling of rain and pine and wet asphalt. I stepped out onto the balcony. Below me, the city of Portland was a grid of lights. Cars moved like red and white blood cells through the veins of the streets. Somewhere down there, people were rushing home, fighting their own battles, hiding their own secrets. I took a deep breath. The air filled my lungs. I had no father. I had no mother. My stepmother was in a cell. My sister was starting over. My grandfather was 1,000 miles away. I was alone. But for the first time in my life, alone didn't feel lonely. It felt infinite. I leaned against the railing and looked at the horizon. The storm clouds were breaking apart, revealing the moon. "I am finished," I whispered to the city, "and I am just getting started." I went back inside and closed the door. I turned off the lights. The apartment was dark, but I wasn't afraid of the dark anymore. I knew how to navigate it. I knew that the only way out was through. And I had made it through. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know what you think about Veronica's punishment. Was it enough? Please comment below where you are listening from. I love reading your comments from all over the world. Don't forget to subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories, like this video, and hit that hype button so we can share more stories of justice and survival with you.